Hello, everyone. This is Political Ideas and Thoughts. It's been a while, or mindful politics, I think you call it now. I've been really, kind of staying away from politics, and there's a couple of reasons. The main ones having to do with how the atmosphere and the rhetoric used is a sort of emotional response. And really that's the main problem with politics, is that 90% of it is emotional response. It's not really based off of any reason or logic. I mean, sure, there were some cases where it is, but mostly it's just emotional response. Now I'm seeing stuff on Twitter where people are saying we should secede from the union and all this bullshit. And then there are others saying, good, you should secede from the union. We don't want you anyway, that type of thing. It's like, this is not helping anyone. It's not helping you. It's not helping me. It's not helping them. This is not what we need right now. We need calm and collected manners. And we don't have that in politics, especially now with social media as big as it is. And so I have been steering away from it until I can kind of clear my head of a lot of this stuff. And I've definitely been doing a lot of that. I've watched a lot of videos on politics, but I've mostly been just calming myself down, watching my emotional state, looking to see where that goes, because this is where politics is going to get you. If you're not careful and if you're not aware and if you're not introspective, you don't know what to look for. You don't know if you don't know what to be wary of when it comes to politics, you're going to fall into the trap of it, leading you down a rabbit hole of radicalization. If you go on Twitter and you just follow people who talk about politics, you're going to be led down a rabbit hole of radicalization to one side or another. Because all that we're dealing with right now, 90% of it, if not more, 95 to 97% of it is just emotional outbursts of, you did us wrong, we want you to pay or whatever. And they're saying, you did us wrong, we want you to pay, we want you to learn your lesson or something. It's just it's one of the problems with when it comes to emotions, is that nobody knows how to deal with them properly, and nobody knows the signs of very few know the signs that leads to this happening. And so it's very important to stay calm and collected in these times, because it's very easy to state your opinion and say, this is what I think. And it's very easy at that point to then say these people are wrong or dumb. I've done that before on this channel. It's very easy to do this, and it's very hard to do the opposite. It's very hard to say, wait, this is wrong. We're not doing this right. We need to calm ourselves down a little bit. Maybe stay away from politics for a couple of months, or not necessarily stay away, but become calmer in the next couple of months and worry about ourselves first, because politics plays on our emotions. So what I might do in the next couple of episodes of this channel, I might start making episodes because I'm clear-headed and I'm able to kind of go about things differently, is kind of give you, I might try and do it in this episode too, some ways in which politics does this. And one of them is just it's what I call validizing. Now, it doesn't mean that this is right or wrong, or they're correct or incorrect. It's more about the response that you have to this idea, that you have to whatever this is. And what it is when you have this idea, this understanding, maybe you're one of those people who say that Trump is trying to create a coup or whatever. What you have to understand is that that's all of this stuff that you're doing. You have to be very aware. You have to be very understanding of yourself and others. And nobody is. Very few people are in politics. Because it's missing a very critical aspect called being calm, being collected, showing calmness, and showing calmness to others with, political ideas and solutions. And so most of what politics is opinion bashing, or is speculation, or is a perspective that is not really going to be very good at explaining things properly. I made an episode on my podcast, David Speaks, about this, about how speculation doesn't really work, at least in negativity and radicalization and conspiracy theories. I might release it on this YouTube channel because it's actually pretty useful for politics as well to understand this. I might also release another video that I did about journalism, or another episode that I did about journalism, because they're both very important. They're both one of the problems. So this channel is going to be different. I'm going to start this off differently. There was a reason why I changed the name from Political Ideas and Thoughts to The Mindful Politics, because I started realizing what politics does. I mean, I already kind of realized it, but I realized a little bit more. Then I realized why it does, for the most part, to some extent, at least. And it's all about ruling and controlling your emotions here. A lot of people like to make this statement that facts don't care about your feelings, but it's just not how this works. Because if you're aware of it or not, your emotions are controlling your decisions if you're not aware of them. And they're controlling how you look at the world and whatnot. So this idea that facts don't care about your feelings is just a very inaccurate and oversimplified look at the world. And it actually goes back to what I was talking about in this episode about speculation, which I'm going to be releasing later today. Or maybe tomorrow, sometime, depends on what happens, but one of the problems that happens is that when you are so it's kind of complicated, but when you have the only one pillar, because most politics is kind of like a one pillar system, and so what happens and this is based on what I've seen and what I've understood, my own personal experience, is that because it's only one pillar, if somebody goes against it, it's very unstable because it only has that one pillar holding it up. And so you have to defend against that person or attack their ideas to keep that pillar up, at least in your own mind. And what's necessary as a systems view of this, a systems thinking view, and it's very hard to do that when you have emotional reactions, especially if they're strong emotional reactions. You may think that you have that facts don't care about your feelings and you're more concerned about logic and things like this. But the problem is that your emotions are still there. If you're not aware of them, they're going to be controlling you. And they're going to be controlling how you do things. And in a small way or a big way, it doesn't really matter. And so, what's been happening over the past couple of years is kind of like an emotional battle of sorts. The one side is like, you're wrong, you hurt me, because that's really what it's about, for the most part. I mean, there are legitimate points to be made from both sides, but don't get me wrong, I'm not saying there isn't. But the reason why it gets so heated is because there is imagined, a need to defend or be hurt by this idea that you're spreading, but you don't realize that you're being hurt by it. Because it's not a sadness hurt, it's more like an anger. Anger is not, one of those emotions that people think is considered by hurt, but it is, in a sense. And it takes you some time to really see this, because you have to sit there and introspect constantly, almost constantly, to do this, to find this out. But, so, they say, you hurt me, and the other side says, you hurt me. And so they keep saying it, you did it to me, you're wrong, you're bad, and then they keep blaming each other. And what blame really does is it doesn't fix the problem, it leads to more negativity. And so criticism is not really worth doing. I've learned this over the years. I did the last couple of books. I mean, I don't even know what the last episode I did, what Mindful Politics was, but a couple months ago. And even then, I was doing that. Because, there's still that problem of negativity. Because all blaming does, and that's what politics mostly is blaming. It's a blame game. It's like, a lot of it is kind of just like point the finger somewhere else. Don't point it over here. We're not the problem. They're the problem. The right's the problem. The left's the problem. Whatever it is. And so, what's happening here is a sort of a ball of blame. Think of like, for instance, if you're in a game, right, or in some kind of a chamber that couldn't be penetrated from the outside or from the inside, and so you'd be bouncing this ball between like two people or two groups, and because there's no escape, and because they're so mad at each other and they're trying to hit each other with this ball, it keeps bouncing and bouncing and bouncing and bouncing. It gets more erratic and more insanely difficult to catch it and deal with it. And so they become more radical as a result. I'm going to hit you with this damn ball. You're bad, you're annoying, you're whatever it is. And so that's the problem that we're dealing with. And so you have to decide. First you have to understand, you have to look inside when you're looking at politics and say to yourself, what is this doing to me? Is it making me calm and peaceful? Or is it making me angry or sad or whatever? And then you have to decide, what do I want more? To continue with this game, or to be peaceful and happy and calm? Because it's not that politics isn't important. It's that the blame game is not working. It's kind of like when you're stuck in the mud. You don't blame the mud for getting yourself stuck. You don't blame yourself for getting stuck. You just get yourself out of it. But in politics, because it's not so obvious, it's not so clear-cut what's happening, this doesn't happen. So everybody blames themselves. Everybody blames somebody else. And there are a few who say, okay, it was our fault, or, it was whatever, and that's fine. But most of the time it's about blame and criticism, and it's about speculation. Journalism has become a speculative game for the most part, and I'm going to be releasing that episode. I might do that one first, actually, because it makes a lot of things kind of be put into perspective if you're willing to listen. And so, what we're dealing with right now is what I'm doing right now is a return to normalcy. I'm trying to get you to transcend your response to politics, because if you think about it, what's going to happen if this continues? This ball is just going to keep bouncing. Eventually is going to lead, and already has led to, in some cases, violence. Antifa is not. Antifa didn't come from a vacuum. It's something that existed for a reason. And the reason is radicalization. It goes back into this problem of taking your ideas so seriously and blaming others, and hating others, and just forgetting about what is truly important. What most people miss is that we're all in this together. And if we're not willing to work with each other and fix the world together, and instead we're just fighting with each other, then the world is not going to be fixed. It's that simple. It's not complicated. But because we have these emotional reactions, and we're not even aware of them, oftentimes when you start getting angry and you start talking shit about some other group, maybe the Democrats or Republicans or whatever, who it is, I don't care, and you start criticizing them, you don't even realize what you're doing. You're basically offloading the pain. You're blaming others to avoid dealing with this problem. So you have to figure out what you want more. Do you want this anger and annoyance and depression and anxiety and whatever else you have because of politics, or you want mental health? Doesn't mean that you have to ignore politics completely. It just means that your mental health comes first. Because a lot of people have it backwards. They're like, if we can fix the world, then we can worry about ourselves, or worry about others. Then we take care of others, then we can take care of ourselves. But if we're doing it from a certain mindset of anxiety, and because eventually it's not going to be that way, we might end up with resentment and things like this. it's not going to work. And so others might feel it and they might go, what the hell's wrong with this person? Is he annoyed with me? And whatever. Part of that is the cognitive distortion of personalization, but it's another subject. And so, really, the best way to help others and to help the world is to help yourself, calm yourself, and by this you can help the world. Anything else is just like leading down a rabbit hole where you're just going to be blaming everybody. And if you want to do that, that's fine. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. But, beware of the implications of this. Look at the implications of what you're doing. Maybe your beliefs are your ideas are valid or true. I don't care. That's not what I'm talking about here. I don't care about the election or that Biden stole it or whatever it is. It's not what I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about what you think is objective or true or facts. I'm more concerned with getting you out of this, transcending all this bullshit. Because what is happening is exactly what is predictable if you look at the implications of what happens. The inevitable implications of having a political point of view that you invest in and you get heated at is eventually violence. It may not come to that because of your principles or whatever, but that's the eventual result. That's what you have to understand here. It's violence. It's not complicated. You have to look and you have to be objective about it. And it's really hard to do that when you're really invested in these things. Both sides are so invested in what they think is true and right and correct that they cannot understand the other side. They don't understand what they're doing to themselves. And it's kind of sad because we know everybody likes to pride themselves on having free will and having all this, but they can't even control themselves. They can't even control their own damn emotions to realize, and they can't even control how they see the world to realize what they're doing to themselves and others. And so we're at a point where we can't keep doing this anymore. Like we're at a point where this can't keep happening, because if it does, where it's going to lead. It's going to lead to some kind of civil war. It's going to lead to violence. So ignore all that bullshit that you think that the other side did. Just ignore all that. Forget about it. We have to start new. Because if we don't start new, if we don't like forgive or the very least understand that what they did for what they thought were good reasons, and work with them on this, and understand that we have to work together to fix these problems and deal with ourselves and whatnot, then we won't be able to I don't know, like, what are we gonna do? What, are we just gonna keep fighting each other and the spiral just gonna keep going out of control? Or maybe it's just gonna normalize, and then that'll be the end of it. Hopefully, that's what's going to happen. But, it's one of those problems with politics. Is that once you start playing this blame game, you become like a soldier. You're now entrenched, and you're not able to escape properly unless you dare to escape the hamster wheel of politics, because that's really what it is at this point. It's a hamster wheel where you're sitting there and you're moving around and around and around and around and around. No, you did it wrong. No, you did it wrong. You did it. I know you are, but what am I? I know you are, but what am I? Well, nothing gets done. Inner strength without unity is a lie. Any kind of strength without trying to unify is a lie. It's just misinformed. Think of it this way, right? If you were trying to create order in a place, in an area, stability, which is what we really want. Inevitably, I think that's what we all want in some way. Some kind of stability, some kind of peace, some kind of normalcy, some kind of, hope for the future, this type of thing. And if we were trying to create this, how would we do this? Would we fight with each other? Battle each other emotionally and physically eventually? No. We'd work with each other. We'd work within each other's perspectives. We would try to see the other side's perspectives, no matter what that takes. And we would realize that together is the only way we can keep order and keep ourselves in stability and peace and security. But apart and fighting is not how we do it, and that's how we end up with disorder, insecurity, and unstable and not peace and negative emotions. So you have to decide what you want more: peace or war, stability, instability, order or fighting, and constant blaming of others. You decide.